Welcome to another deep dive, everybody. Today we're going to be exploring the life of Prophet Muhammad,
Okay.
but with a twist.
Ooh, I like twists.
Yeah, so, we often hear about all of his, incredible achievements,
Right.
but
Yeah.
what about the tough times? What about the hardships he faced?
Yeah.
And it turns out there are some pretty powerful lessons I think we can all learn
Uh-huh.
from how he handled those struggles, especially when, life throws us a curveball.
Mhm.
And our guide for this deep dive is going to be a talk by Mufti Menk.
Oh, very cool.
Have you heard of him?
I have, yeah. Mufti Menk is great.
Yeah, so he's got this really fascinating talk that we're going to be diving into.
Awesome.
So what's really interesting about his perspective is that he emphasizes how even Prophet Muhammad,
Okay.
who, Muslims believe is God's most beloved messenger, had to deal with some pretty major obstacles.
Yeah. It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it.
Right.
Like, if anyone should have had an easy life,
Yeah,
you would think it would be him.
you'd think so.
But, Mufti Menk really reminds us that maybe God's love isn't always about, giving us that smooth ride. Sometimes it's about supporting us through those storms and helping us come out stronger
Exactly.
on the other side.
Yeah. And he really doesn't sugarcoat things. Like, he
Yeah.
talks about how Prophet Muhammad experienced a lot of loss
Right.
early on in his life.
Absolutely. And these weren't just ordinary losses.
Right.
I mean, imagine losing your father before you're even born.
Wow.
Then when you're only 6 years old, your mother passes away.
Oh, gosh.
And then just 2 years after that,
Oh, my God.
the grandfather who raised you is gone too.
Wow. To experience that much grief at such a young age, that's
Mhm.
got to shape you.
Absolutely. And for anyone listening who's experienced the loss of a parent or a caregiver, especially early in life,
Right.
it's something that stays with you.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, we see that even the most beloved by God still go through incredibly difficult human experiences.
Yeah. And so then Mufti Menk goes on to talk about how, even with all this hardship, Prophet Muhammad was known for his honesty and integrity.
Yeah.
Even as a young man,
Right.
he was someone people trusted even before he became a prophet.
One of the most famous stories is about the Black Stone.
Okay.
So when they were rebuilding the Kaaba, the holiest site in Islam,
Right.
there was a huge disagreement among the tribes about who would have the honor of placing the Black Stone
Okay.
back in its position.
So they had this major conflict brewing,
Yeah, they did.
and they needed somebody to step in and mediate.
And you know who they turned to?
Who?
Prophet Muhammad,
Really?
who was still in his 20s at that time.
That's a pretty big deal.
It is.
They must really respected him.
They did, and he came up with a brilliant solution.
Oh, wow.
Instead of letting one tribe have all the glory,
Uh-huh.
he suggested that each tribe hold a corner of a cloth with the Black Stone in the middle. That way everyone shared the honor of placing it, and it avoided a potential conflict.
That's so clever.
Yeah.
You can see how his reputation for fairness and wisdom just shines through, even in those early years.
It really highlights how integrity isn't just about following the rules, it's about finding creative solutions that benefit everyone.
Right. And speaking of integrity, there's also the story of Prophet Muhammad's business dealings with Khadijah,
Yes.
who later became his wife.
Uh-huh.
But even though he couldn't read or write in the traditional sense...
It's important to clarify what that means.
Yeah,
Unlettered in this context doesn't mean he wasn't intelligent or capable.
right.
In those days, literacy wasn't as common as it is today.
Right. It wasn't like everybody went to school and learned to read and write.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But despite not being able to physically write,
Right.
Prophet Muhammad was known for being incredibly meticulous and honest in his business dealings.
Oh, wow.
He kept detailed records and always made sure everything was fair and transparent.
So basically, she found a way to work around
Mhm.
the limitations of not being able to write himself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes about his commitment to honesty,
Yeah.
even when it wasn't the easiest or most convenient path.
And it's interesting how this reputation for integrity played a role in his relationship with Khadijah.
Yeah?
She was a successful businesswoman in her own right,
Yes.
older than him,
Ah.
previously married.
Mhm.
It wasn't your typical love story, you know?
It wasn't, that's an understatement.
Yeah.
In that time and culture, it was incredibly rare for a woman to propose to a man,
Really?
especially a younger man.
Wow.
But she saw something special in him.
Yeah.
She admired his character, his integrity, his potential.
So it's a reminder that true connection
Mm-hmm.
goes beyond those superficial things.
Absolutely.
You know, it's about recognizing and appreciating somebody's inner qualities.
100%.
Yeah. And Mufti Menk goes on to talk about how Prophet Muhammad would often retreat to this cave called Hira
Okay.
for meditation and contemplation.
Yeah, he was really wrestling with the state of society,
Yeah?
deeply troubled by the injustice and the suffering that he saw around him.
I think a lot of us can relate to that.
Yeah.
We see the problems in the world and we wonder how to make things better.
It's that inner yearning for something more,
Yeah.
for meaning, for a way to contribute to positive change.
Yeah. And it seems like those periods of solitude and reflection were really important for him to process all of that and to, find his own path.
Absolutely. And that's where things get really interesting,
Okay.
because it's during one of these retreats that he receives the first revelation.
Okay. So we're getting to the point where his life is about to take a dramatic turn.
Yeah.
Tell me more about this first revelation.
Okay.
What happened?
Well, according to Islamic tradition, the angel Gabriel appeared to Prophet Muhammad in the cave
Wow.
and commanded him to read,
Okay.
"In the name of your Lord."
And remember, this is a man who couldn't read in the conventional sense.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's a detail that Mufti Menk really emphasizes. It's like this moment transcends human limitations.
Right.
It's
Yes.
a reminder that with God's help, we can overcome any perceived obstacle.
So what was Prophet Muhammad's reaction?
What?
How did he handle this sudden life-altering event?
He was initially overwhelmed, understandably,
Right.
but he had a strong support system.
Okay.
His wife Khadija,
Uh-huh.
his close friend Abu Bakr,
Hey.
and his young cousin Ali,
Okay.
they were the first to believe in him, to
Wow.
offer him comfort and reassurance.
It's amazing to see how those closest to him recognized his truthfulness, even when others doubted him.
Right.
So we've got the first seeds of the Muslim community being planted right there.
And that's something we'll explore further in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll delve into how this small group of believers faced opposition and eventually grew into a movement that changed the course of history.
All right, so stay tuned for part 2.
Yes.
We'll uncover more about Prophet Muhammad's message, the challenges that he faced, and what we can all learn from his incredible journey.
Absolutely.
Welcome back. We're picking up where we left off. Prophet Muhammad has just received his first revelation, and he's got this small but incredibly supportive circle around him. His wife, Khadija, his friend Abu Bakr, and his cousin Ali. So, what happens next?
Well, as you might imagine, not everyone was quite as receptive to his message.
Right.
In fact, Prophet Muhammad and his early followers faced a lot of opposition.
That makes sense. Whenever you challenge the status quo, you're bound to ruffle some feathers.
Yeah.
So what kind of pushback did they experience?
Well, Mufti Menk talks about how some people just flat out rejected Prophet Muhammad's message. They accused him of being a liar, a sorcerer, even a madman.
Wow.
Some even spread rumors that he was power-hungry and just trying to disrupt the social order.
It's almost like a playbook, right? Accuse the messenger, discredit the message.
Exactly. And it's interesting how Mufti Menk points out that the very people who accused Prophet Muhammad of wanting power were often those who were clinging to their own positions of authority.
So basically, they saw him as a threat to their own comfortable way of life.
Exactly. And it's a pattern we see throughout history.
Right.
Those in power often resist change, especially when it challenges their own privilege.
Makes sense.
It's easier to dismiss the message than to confront the uncomfortable truths it might reveal.
It's like that saying, when you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression.
That's a great way to put it. And what's really inspiring is that despite all this negativity and resistance, Prophet Muhammad never backed down from his message.
Wow.
Never wavered in his conviction.
He must have had incredible inner strength
He did.
to keep going in the face of such opposition.
Yeah, and I think that's a key takeaway for all of us. Standing up for what you believe in, for what's right, often comes with a price. You'll likely face pushback, criticism, maybe even outright hostility. But if you're truly committed to your purpose, you find a way to persevere.
It's interesting because Mufti Menk also makes a point of saying that all this hardship, the loss, the accusations, the rejection, it wasn't a sign that God had abandoned Prophet Muhammad.
Right. In fact, some scholars believe it could even be seen as a sign of God's special care and love.
It's a different way of thinking about hardship, isn't it?
It is.
We often see it as a punishment, a sign that we've done something wrong.
Right.
But what if it's actually an opportunity for growth? A chance to develop resilience, to deepen our faith?
It's like a test of our commitment, our strength of character.
And it's important to remember that Prophet Muhammad didn't go through all of this alone. He had his close circle of supporters who never wavered in their belief in him.
Absolutely.
You mentioned Khadija, Abu Bakr, and Ali.
Yes.
What role did they play in helping him navigate these challenges?
They provided unwavering emotional and spiritual support.
Wow.
I imagine how crucial that must have been during those dark times, to have people who truly believed in you, who stood by you no matter what.
It's a reminder of the power of community, of having people around you who lift you up and encourage you to stay true to your purpose.
And it's worth noting that these early believers weren't just passive supporters. They actively contributed to the growth of the Muslim community.
So we've got the hardships, the opposition, the unwavering faith. But what about the message itself? What was it about Prophet Muhammad's teachings that resonated so deeply with people?
Well, at its core, it was a message of pure monotheism. The belief in one God, the creator of all. It called for people to turn away from idol worship and the pursuit of worldly possessions, to focus instead on cultivating a relationship with the divine.
It's interesting how that message of monotheism could be seen as both simple and radical at the same time.
Exactly. On the one hand, it was a return to the basic truth of one God, something that many prophets before him had preached. But on the other hand, it challenged the existing power structures, which were often based on idol worship and tribal hierarchies.
So it wasn't just about personal faith, it was about transforming society as well.
Absolutely. Prophet Muhammad's teachings emphasized the inherent dignity and worth of every human being, regardless of their social status, wealth, or ethnicity. It was a call to justice, to compassion, to treating others with kindness and respect.
And that message, this call to righteousness and social justice, was particularly appealing to those who had been marginalized and oppressed by the existing social order.
Yes, Mufti Menk points out that many of the early converts to Islam were slavewomen and those who had been excluded from the benefits of the existing power structures.
They saw an opportunity for change.
Yeah, they found hope and empowerment in a message that recognized their inherent worth and challenged the injustices they faced.
It's amazing to see how a message that started with a small group of people could grow into a movement that transformed entire societies.
And a lot of that had to do with the way Prophet Muhammad built community.
Okay.
He established a model in Medina based on mutual support, cooperation, and shared responsibility for the well-being of all members.
So it wasn't just about talking the talk, it was about walking the walk.
Exactly. He created a space where the weak and vulnerable were protected, where justice prevailed, and where the pursuit of material wealth was balanced with a deep commitment to spiritual growth and social responsibility.
It's a powerful example of how faith can be translated into action, how a shared belief system can inspire people to create a more just and equitable world.
And that's a message that continues to resonate today, even centuries later.
Right.
The idea that we can build communities based on compassion, cooperation, and a shared commitment to the well-being of all.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. The opposition, the unwavering faith, the message of social justice, and the building of a community.
We have.
What other key takeaways should we keep in mind from this part of Prophet Muhammad's journey?
Well, I think one of the most important things to remember is that even amidst all the chaos and turmoil, Prophet Muhammad never lost sight of his connection to God.
Right, Mufti Menk talks about how he would constantly turn to prayer, to supplication, to seeking guidance and solace from God in the face of every challenge.
Exactly, and that's something we can all learn from. No matter what we're going through, no matter how difficult things may seem, we can always turn to that source of strength and comfort that's always available to us.
It's about cultivating that inner connection, that awareness of God's presence in every moment, no matter what's happening around us.
And it's something that's so desperately needed in our modern world, a world that's often characterized by anxiety, uncertainty, and a sense of disconnect from something larger than ourselves.
Right.
It's a reminder that we are not just material beings, but spiritual beings as well,
Right.
with a deep longing for meaning and connection that can only be satisfied through a relationship with God.
And that brings us to the end of part 2.
Okay.
Join us for part 3, where we'll explore how Prophet Muhammad's life and teachings can guide us in navigating the challenges of the modern world.
Welcome back to our final part of this deep dive. We've journeyed through Prophet Muhammad's early life, his hardships, the way he handled opposition, and the power of his message.
It's been quite a journey.
It has been, but now let's talk about you and me.
Okay.
How can we actually use what we've learned?
Yeah,
The world today can feel pretty overwhelming, right?
absolutely. And that's why I find Mufti Menk's perspective so valuable.
He reminds us that, challenges are just a part of life.
Right.
And instead of, viewing hardship as some sort of divine punishment.
Hmm.
Maybe we can see it as a test, a chance to grow, to build resilience.
It's easy to feel defeated when things get tough.
Yeah,
But maybe, like you said, those moments are actually opportunities in disguise.
I think so.
If Prophet Muhammad could face what he did and still come out stronger, it gives you a different perspective on your own struggles, doesn't it?
It really does. And remember, he wasn't just surviving those hardships.
Right.
He was thriving
Yeah,
in the face of them.
right.
Mufti Menk emphasizes that Prophet Muhammad constantly sought knowledge
Mm-hmm.
and encouraged others to do the same.
Right.
He was sent as a teacher,
Yeah.
someone who illuminated the world with knowledge and guidance.
And when you say knowledge,
Yeah.
it's not just about hitting the books, right?
No.
It's about having that thirst for understanding, expanding your horizons, looking at the world with compassion.
Right? It's about being curious, asking questions, not being afraid to challenge your own assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
And even more importantly, it's about using that knowledge
Yeah,
to make a difference in the world.
that's where the rubber meets the road.
Right.
What good is knowledge if it just stays in your head?
Exactly.
Ah,
Mufti Menk highlights that, Prophet Muhammad wasn't just about words.
right.
He was a man of action.
Yeah,
He not only preached compassion and justice, but he actually lived those values.
right.
He cared for the poor and marginalized,
Huh.
stood up for the oppressed, and worked to create a more just society.
So it's like a call to action for all of us.
Yeah.
We can't just passively absorb information. We have to find ways to put it into practice to make a tangible impact.
Exactly. Look for those everyday opportunities,
Mm.
to show kindness, compassion, courage. Stand up for what's right even when it's difficult.
Yeah.
Be a source of light in those areas where things feel dark.
I love that image being a source of light. That really sums up the essence of what we can learn from Prophet Muhammad's life, doesn't it? Despite facing immense challenges, he never lost sight of his humanity, his compassion, or his belief in the good within each of us.
It's a beautiful legacy to strive towards.
It is.
In a world that often feels divided and cynical,
Yeah.
choosing to embody those values, to be a force for healing and understanding,
Yeah.
that's a powerful way to honor his teachings.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
I want to leave you with this. How can you apply what we've learned from Prophet Muhammad's life to your own journey?
Mhm.
How can you be a source of light in your community, in your own corner of the world? It doesn't have to be grand gestures. Even small acts of kindness and understanding can make a difference.
Absolutely. And if you're looking for more inspiration, I highly recommend checking out Mufti Menk's full talk.
Yes.
It's incredibly moving and thought-provoking.
Okay, well, thank you for joining me on this deep dive. I hope you found it insightful. And until next time, may you find peace, purpose, and inspiration on your path.
I did too. Thanks for having me.